Thank you for coming along today. Apologies for the slight delayed start, just a couple of technical issues, or a couple of physical issues actually around quorum. So, but we have one now. Just a reminder, it's going to be very tight. So if you need to leave for any reason, it better be a good one. So, yeah. As I say, welcome to this is going to be the final economic development meeting for 2023. Looking at the agenda, your first glimpse, you would think it looks pretty light, given it's only, all the reports add up to only 126 pages, but having had a good read through it, there's some very good quality information in there with some fantastic, informative insights, which I found quite fascinating. Now, as you know, I like to open meetings with various different stats and whatnot, so I'm going to tell you today that November the 14th is the 318th day of the year, 319th in leap years in the Gregorian calendar. There's only 47 days left until the end of the year. But wait, there's more. Did you know it's National Spicy Guacamole Day today?
Oh, nice.
Not only that, it's also National Pickle Day, it's Operating Room Nurse Day, and it's World Diabetes Day. But my favourite is Loosen Up, Lighten Up Day, which I'm going to touch on at the end of our meeting, because I'll just leave you hanging with that piece. Before we kick into it, I'd like to. We will kick off with item 1. So I'll move apologies for Councillor Taylor, who's a partial attendance, full absence in Councillor Wilson, who's downstairs on Plan Change 9 duty, Deputy Mayor Angela O'Leary, and Councillor Van Oosten and Councillor Tauriki. Are there any other apologies that we need to know about?
Kesh from 1 p.m.
Kesh from 1 p.m, okay. Noted. Everyone else is all good? Okay, so I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? And Councillor Bitter. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Oh, shall I go raise their hands because we've got the online? Yep, okay. That was carried. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Confirmation of agenda. Amy, there were no changes to our agenda, were there?
No changes except for the additional matters that we added
Yep.
and that have been circulated to members.
Yep. Is everyone comfortable with that? Okay. I'm happy to move. Second can be Councillor Anna. Yep. Yep. And raise your hands if you, all those in favour. Okay. Yep. That's carried unanimously. No vote required, but anyone would like to express any declarations of interest? None? Okay. Moving through. Public forum. We don't have any public forum today, so tick that one. Confirmation of the Economic Development Committee open minutes from last time. I'm happy to move. Second by Mayor Paula. Show of hands for all those in favour. Yeah, right. All those against? No, the ayes have it. Carried. And next item is the Chair's report. But before we jump into that, I'd like to, even though he's not here, hopefully we can catch up with him later, but just wanted to thank Chair Ewan for his work. There was a little bit of sentiment expressed yesterday on the good work that Ryan had done previously, and Ewan's definitely picked that up and carried it on in a very good fashion. I'd also like to thank all the committee members for their contributions and support, and a special thanks to Blair and your team for the work you do in terms of pulling all the information together and presenting it. I know it's not easy, but for a person like me who loves data and statistics and stuff like that, I find it really insightful and very helpful, so thank you for that. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the fantastic governance team. Thank you for all the work that you guys do. You are definitely the backbone of the engine, and Amy, you and your team do a lot of stuff that I know goes on behind the scenes, physically unseen, but I can assure you it's absolutely noticed. So thank you very much, and I'm sure I speak for everyone when I express our appreciation. So thank you. Right, so the Chair's report, I'm happy to talk to it a little bit. Do I need to move it first before I talk? Okay. You can see, which in the Chair's report, that the Economic Development team have been very proactive. They're going to talk to that a little bit later. You know, reading the signals within the economy, it's easy to pick up on the sentiment that yes, the next 12 to 18 months are going to be quite challenging, but if you prepare yourself for challenges, then you can generally get better outcomes. We've had some, you know, the Municipal Endowment Fund Advisory Group is continuing to explore and consider all the opportunities to deploy the MEF. Certainly for myself, I get a real sense that we're getting close to completing a bit of a legacy in terms of some deals, which we can talk about later on in public excluded. Events, they were touched on in the Chair's report. If you had a read through, you would have seen my little contribution, and you would know that I for one am all very proactive when it comes to sporting and recreational activity going on around the city. So you'll see my little theme coming through, but I just wanted to add that you know, we can see business and sporting and cultural events coming back to the city. We're getting a real a sense of people getting out and about and doing stuff, and I've got a real passion for that kind of interaction, because it's what Kiwis of all ethnicities thrive on. You know, as a council, I believe that we should facilitate more of it, because a vibrant Hamilton with a greater social interaction equals better outcomes for community, and that's got to be a plus for all of us, right? So I'd like to say that those were my words, but I pinched them out of page 118.25 under social wellbeing considerations. So I won't lay claim to it, but I thought that sounded pretty good when I was reading it. Right, so I'm happy to move the Chair's report. Yep, okay, all right. Well, should we move the report, and all those in favour?
Oh, no, you can't do that.
Sorry, go to debate.
Don't move it away from me.
Sorry.
That's all right, don't worry.
Process, yep.
No worries.
I'm getting ahead of
Just on the
myself.
comment around the airport,
yeah.
I attended the airport AGM. So did Lance and so did Sean. You were there, weren't you, Sean? So, and so I was a few minutes late, having conflicting arrangements. But I noticed that the Chair's report refers to the performance of the airport and the lack of dividends and a couple of things. The airport does actually, considering the financial downturn, has done incredibly well from a balance of commercial and aviation, getting that balance. So I asked them at the AGM if they felt that that balance between commercial growth and aviation growth was where it should sit, and they feel it is. So I've raised that question with them just to keep an eye on that balance, because it is still an airport, is still in the aviation business. Dividends, I noticed Ewan's report talks about elected members discussing and providing feedback. The dividend policy has been completed and moved by the AGM. So I will circulate it for your interest. Sean may be able to add. Yeah, so. And that just in terms of the lack of dividends, that's also, you're also going to talk to that, Sean, because dividends were in fact allocated and the dividends policy has been amended. The good news about that is coming into the future, but not necessarily, the short-term one's very small in my opinion, but the going forward, dividends paid to shareholders will be very helpful and a bit of a buffer to other financial situations. But of course, at the moment, the airport's consolidating their position and in the midst of a few commercial developments, which meant they couldn't really give a greater dividend, is how I understood it, but I know you're going to talk to it. So I just wanted to say that, because there will be no opportunity for elected members to provide feedback on that dividend policy. It is in place until the next AGM. If we want to, we could go back then and ask for amendments. But I actually think it's a good improvement, that dividend policy, because it actually highlights when and how dividends will be given out over the future, isn't it, Sean? So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Paula. That actually triggered a reminder that I did make some notes that we were going to, the WRAL is a topic that could potentially be a little bit niggly today, but it does come up in 3 different spots throughout the meeting. One in particular is in PX, but what we generally agreed on was that if there were any questions to the GM's report, then we'd defer them to the open CCO report. And we'll get to the open CCO report, so not in PX, So that's all I had to add there, but thank you for your comments. So Mayor Paula was the seconder. Does anyone else? I can't see anyone on.
Out of PX into that open until after it's been resolved. Is that what you meant? That the part, you meant it the other way around. So any questions were of commercial sensitivity would be deferred to the PX part? What did you mean? Sorry, I'm sorry.
Sorry, he was just trying to explain in the general manager's report as well, it also comes up.
Yes, it
And
does.
the chair's report.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we were going to just group all of the questions about the open matters to the CCO report, item
Right.
9.
Just
Just
so
'cause
if
that's
it's a
the big one.
commercially sensitive
Oh, that's the
matter,
later,
then it
later.
would go into the PX
Yeah,
report.
yeah, absolutely.
Thanks,
Yeah,
I was just
sorry.
a bit confused.
No,
That's
no.
all right.
That's all right. I confuse myself most of the time. Okay, so no other comments. So moved and seconded. All raise your hands. All those in favour? Yep. Online. Yep. Good. None against.
Perfect, carried unanimously.
Okay. Right. General Manager's report. I'm happy to move the General Manager's report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bitter, but I'd invite GM Blair to talk to his report.
Thank you, Chair Mark, and good morning, elected members. It's odd to be looking just to this side of the room. So the General Manager's report covers a couple of items. First is our regular performance monitoring report, which shows very good progress in terms of the range of outcomes that we're seeking to progress through this committee, both in terms of the year one metrics, but also those that sort of extend across the 3 years. So happy to take any specific questions on those. Some of those matters do come up in later reports, but I wanted to give you, I guess, reassurance that beneath the work that you get presented here, there's a lot of things going on, and I guess these metrics just give you that greater clarity in terms of those various individual items. Some of those that are listed there in year one also extended to years 2 and 3. So we're just going to have a look at how we present this information for next year, because it's often hard. Some of these things are a bit of a judgment call. So happy to take any questions on the KPI report. I'll also just invite GM Sean, to briefly touch on the other 2 attachments to the report as well around the airport and Hamilton Waikato tourism.
Yes, thank you, Blair. Just apologies for the fact that I did not get some commentary into this report with regards to the attachments to this agenda item. The first is the copy of the Hamilton Airport's annual report that has just been released. You have actually already received that report at the last committee of this meeting, but you may recall at the time it hadn't been audited or completed, or the audit hadn't been completed. It's now been completed, so you just have a final copy here, and there is no change to the original one that you saw. So as Mayor Paula referred to earlier last week, that report was formally presented to all shareholders at the company's AGM. If I could add some comments on the company AGM to what Mayor Paula reported back. Look, it was actually a very good result for a company that's in a tricky economic zone, and with a lot of the activity that's going on. So it's actually in very, very good shape. And I'll repeat again that it is it's in the right trajectory from going from a pretty poor performing business 10 years ago to getting really solid foundations, and it is moving forward. And we have an expectation that both trading results will start to lift significantly, and as will the balance sheet overall. I would also stress, with the questions that have been around aviation activity, if you were at the annual general meeting, you would have seen more commentary about aviation activity than anything else. In fact, you would have seen they showed the expansion that the company has put into aviation zoning of land and use of land. And if you think about the main items of interest to shareholders, they were primarily aviation related. So I'd really like to stress that fact, despite the fact that, like all other major airports, they also have a commercial property arm that helps fund the aviation. The second report is really just an update report from Hamilton Waikato Tourism on the latest statistics that we have on visitor data. Once again, a positive story as the tourism industry sort of returns, and you get a report from Hamilton Waikato Tourism where they present to you twice a year, and this is really just an interim report with an update on figures. Thank you.
So through the chair, happy to take any questions. I think if there's any substantive questions on the airport matter, perhaps we take that when we get to the next item on CCOs.
Yep, if we could, that would be preferable. Councillor Bidder.
Thank you, Chair Mark. Blair, I understand we're talking about some stuff in PX, but if there is some public interest in hotels, which is mentioned as on that economic development program, could you give us an update of what you're able to say publicly?
Look, and Sean might want to add in here. What I can say publicly is that we understand the priority of attracting new hotels to the city, and it's been well articulated by this committee. There's been information provided to this committee around the need, but also the likely uptake and usage of a hotel or hotels. And as staff, we are actively working on a number of initiatives to give effect to that desire of this committee. So I think that's probably what I can say. Sean, will you add anything to that?
Yeah, thank you. I would just add that there is a lot of activity going on behind the scenes between hotel developers, hotel operators and property owners in the city. Everyone is totally in agreement that the demand is there for the hotel development. It's probably, there's more action taking place than I've ever seen since I've been here on this front, and it has been a frustrating journey, I guess. I think the one area that we have to be clear on that is challenging for hotel developers is the cost of building. The cost of developing right now has that ratio in terms of the formulas that the developer has to have is just tipping it over the edge. So if we'd been a couple of years earlier, you know, or something like that, but it is the concern that people have, and so some developers are saying to themselves, do we wait a couple of years until that build cost settles down or whatever, but it is pretty high in terms of what is being discussed out there.
Thank you. Good answers.
Mayor Paula.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick ones. What sort of, I saw in the economic development that there was going to be an increased economic growth mindset throughout the organisation. What sort of activities are you doing to ensure there's an increased economic growth mindset? What does that mean?
It effectively means that the work that Mike is doing in particular is well understood by the organisation, and a bit like some of our other initiatives, that when we undertake our work, it's not solely with a singular focus. It's understanding the four well-beings in terms of how we undertake our work, and economic is one of those pillars, Mayor Paula. So it's about staff understanding that initiatives they are pursuing, how do they give effect to our social, our environmental, cultural, and in this case, our economic outcomes that we seek. So that's probably it in a nutshell.
Thank you. In terms of the dividend, Sean, can you remind us what the quantum was to us, how that worked for us?
Yeah, sure. The total dividend payment from the airport company is $500,000 to shareholders. We, being a 50% shareholder, will pick up $250,000 of that, and that's consistent with what we've received in previous years.
Yeah, so I know that you would be a little bit disappointed with the quantum, but Sean, can you describe how they were indicating that there's about 3 years of consolidation and then they start to roll out significantly bigger dividends?
Yeah, as the property development arm expands and actually starts to draw in the revenues that they're projecting, then the profitability will start to lift to a more attractive zone for dividends to be paid out.
Yeah, so there is some time around about 2030, isn't there, where the dividends will be of a helpful amount at times?
Oh, yeah, maybe sooner.
Because this is not that helpful. given what we're facing.
correct.
But nothing, money in is money in, so we're grateful for that. Also, can you perhaps talk to members, because one thing I didn't hear you mention in your report, which I thought was a fascinating and good opportunity for us in aviation, was the bid for the alternative fuels pilot.
Yeah, so what the Mayor's referring to is Air New Zealand is looking to do some test bedding for alternative fuel aircraft, which is, a 10, 15-year horizon. And they have gone out to a few airport companies around New Zealand to seek their interest in putting a bid forward to be a host aviation site for that test bed activity. So Hamilton Airport has put its hand up, obviously, and we think we have a very good case for Hamilton being with its location, and more especially for the type of aircraft that will be developed under this program, the right sort of hubbing network, if you like, for regional centres that are close by for the test bed, including Auckland. So, but that is in early stages at the moment, but the airport company is pretty aggressive in terms of trying to secure that particular business.
Yeah, so from what I understand, especially from my meeting with Air New Zealand earlier in the year, that's potentially electric, small fleet electric, because apparently smaller planes could fly from here to Wellington in an electric capacity, but it may not be electric, it might be biofuels and hydrogen and other.
Hydrogen, so for that activity, it's not just about having a runway and hangar space, it's also about having workshops and development stuff, which the airport company does have, but it will require a lot of other infrastructure services, especially when it comes to electricity provision and things like that. So it will become a whole of local economy effort.
And they are really pushing their sustainability through some other measures, aren't they?
Yeah, so the airport company have quite a strong sustainability program that they are looking to be at the higher end of rating for airports in this part of the world. And one of the bigger developments is a $1.5 billion solar farm that they're going to be installing early next year, which will provide a significant amount of their electricity requirements. Thank you for the leading question.
Sorry, just because I was there and I was quite excited by some of that. Thank you.
Great, thanks. We'll keep any more questions around the airport until item 9 if we can. Anyone else? No one online? No? Okay, so General Manager's report moved by myself, seconded by Mayor Paula. Show of hands for all those in favour.
The motion was carried unanimously.
Okay, great. Right, getting through it at a good clip. Item 8, strategic and general update. Are we inviting Mike Bennett to come over?
Thank you, Chair. I'll invite Mike up to the seat to first present at the first item. So there are 4 topics covered in this report, 2 of which we'll delve into a bit more deeply. So Mike will talk about the Economic Development Programme, and it also has some guests and friends in attendance to support that. And then secondly, Greg is going to do his best Tiki impersonation and just cover off the data, economics and policy update. Tiki, unfortunately, is unable to be with us today. Happy to take questions on the other 2 topics in the report, being growth programs and tourism events and visitation, but those are the 2 areas we'll highlight on. So hand over to Mike.
Great, thank you. I'll take the report as read. I want to highlight 2 key elements of the report, and Arif Khan, who's part of our team and staff, and Aaron Wansbro, also here, who is leading the push with Cultivate Trust and Tech in the Tron, will come up here as soon as I'm done briefly. But really just wanted to underscore, looking back at the whole year, and I think the comments from Arif and Aaron will underscore the value placed on engagement and relationships. In fact, it's in Arif's job title. Really doing the push to not sit behind a desk, but really get out, particularly in the business community, and engage meaningfully with employers in Hamilton. So I'll invite the 2 up here, excuse me, to speak to that. On the Tech in the Tron part, also wanted to mention that David Hallett is here. So Tech in the Tron, as Aaron will explain, is part of the Cultivate Trust. which was formerly part of, or they borrowed the name from Cultivate IT, which many of you will be familiar with. But the first project has been Tech in the Tron, and the trustees that run that include David Hallett, who's a co-founder of Company X, as well as Carl Beetham from Gallagher, Mike Jenkins, who was one of the founders of the Instillery, and then Phil Taylor of Tompkins Wake. So quite a collection of some really insightful and high-level people pushing this forward. So I'll invite them up now to speak.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chair. Look, we started this year with a big goal of having meaningful engagement with 75 employers across the three key growth sectors that this committee had identified, which is manufacturing, logistics, agri-tech, tech, and innovation. We're on track to finish this year meeting with 80+ employers, and one of the biggest takeaway from that was the change in sentiment between the two halves of the year. There was a lot of optimism during the first half, which has changed to a lot of caution towards the second half, driven largely by macroeconomic factors. However, the sense I get from having these conversations with businesses in Hamilton is that caution is not necessarily a bad thing. It's primarily setting them up for success once the economic conditions start to change. And the only other thing I'd like to add is I was blown away by the time and effort that a lot of the businesses, the CEs, the general managers take to engage with council and are very invested in seeing council as a partner. And I look forward to seeing how we can leverage these relationships in the future. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. It's on, lean right forward. As Mike said, my name is Erin Wansborough. I've been leading the effort in the Tech in the Tron push, but not alone. So Carl Beetham is the chair of the trust, and one trustee that wasn't mentioned is also Mike Bennett. So the Hamilton City Council also has been a core part of shaping what this purpose is, but absolutely driven by industry. The purpose of the Trust is to accelerate the growth, success and diversity of the tech sector across the Waikato and particularly Hamilton City. Why we exist is there is a key choke point around attracting talent, and it's a critical piece if these tech and innovation businesses are to grow across the Waikato. So hence, like-minded people got together and thought what was the job to be done, and Tech in the Tron was born, or Cultivate Trust was born, with Tech in the Tron being the first project. So this first project, which is underway, is a mix of a website as well as a social media platform, if you want to think of it simply. And the whole purpose is to try and drive connection, visibility, across the local community, but particularly from the external community, to be aware of what exists here in the Waikato and in Hamilton. So that's nationally and globally around the opportunities. As I've mentioned, it was developed by like-minded people. Sorry, I've just hit the wrong thing on my phone. Our goal was simple. We want Hamilton to be on the map, and we want the Waikato to be on the map because there is a war on talent as such. And we wanted visibility and awareness of the great and diverse tech sector that existed here that hadn't been told before. The other core point I wanted to make, and obviously opening for any questions that would come, is there was this group of like-minded people that came out of the Cultivate IT as well as other like-minded parties. At the end of 2022, we formed a bit of a light strategy, and it was really tested through 2022 and into 23. I want to note that Hamilton City Council has been a critical part of that. And where it really has taken life is actually in the doing and the creation of the project with Rubber Hitting Road. and not only at the trustee level, but also particularly in the project team in making this happen. And as Arif was just saying, with the business engagement, collecting stories, waving the flag, making this, really aware, the Hamilton City Council Economic Development team has been integral in making this a success. Not only Mike, but Arif, Luciana, and particular Kate Harris before she also moved on. Without that, this wouldn't exist. That pro bono and voluntary effort is critical with actually turning talk and ideas into action. We're really proud of what has been achieved, and there is more to come.
Thank you. So through the chair, on this particular item, happy to take any questions on the economic insights work and Tech in the Trom.
Okay. Councillor Casey Cox.
Kia ora, thank you for your report and to hear about the good. It's great to hear about the good work. I remember our meeting we had with the tech businesses and their reflections on what they would like Hamilton to include or be like as a place to live. And one of those things was public transport, good public transport, and the ability to get around without a car. I'm just wondering, is that part of your conversations, or are you connecting with the transport team and council to sort of connect those dots, I guess?
Thank you for the question. Yes, it is part of the conversations that we have with businesses and employers. And we are working fairly closely with the regional council, the team over there, Sarah Loynes and Trudy Knight, having discussions and sharing that feedback, which they have indicated is quite useful to them. Not sure if Mike wants to add anything to that.
No, I think. Thanks. Yeah, I think really, as Arif mentioned, it is being that conduit. So what regional council and their transportation experts have said, and including people here at council's team, is if we could be that connection as they try and get buy-in to some of the things they're doing, can we be that guide? Arif spent a year building these really good relationships with people that employ a significant number, and public transport comes up in pretty much every meeting. So again, we're not the experts in that, but there are some really smart, good people that we can make that connection to.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine hearing from the voice of businesses in support would be hugely valuable, so thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, I'd like to invite Councillor Sarah to ask her question.
Thank you, Chair. Morena, Erin, I was, I guess, a little bit of a similar question to Councillor Anna, but what else do you see as being important in terms of attracting talent, and I guess sits inside of the council's scope of business?
I think. Oh, sorry.
Karen.
Arif? Yeah. No. From businesses' perspective, core things. If you think about that talent pipeline, there's a very early stage, new to their job employee, sort of 1 to 5 years, and then there's another skill set which is the deep experience tech. So if I can talk to both of those, it's because that's where the challenges are that we're finding, Sarah. So the first one around the new to work, it's how do you create a vibrant, attractive career path that they can see the connection, that it's a place to start their career and they can move on to other opportunities. So it's making that visibility, because without that, why would someone at that age and stage of their career choose the Waikato over an OE or over perhaps, the big city lights that they might see from another large city. So that's the first challenge, is telling and showcasing that story and showing that the external paradigm that people may have of the Waikato might not be up to date. So it's showing it through stories of diversity, of youth, of talking about how they love to work here and how it's been one of the best things they can do for their career. So there's that part. If you think about the other persona or, skilled worker, how do you attract someone from I don't know, Chicago, San Francisco, that when they're thinking of moving to Aotearoa, that they think, I've got to go to the Waikato, it's on the top of my list. And that talks about not only their career and that there's that depth of tech, but also that it will fit often their partner, and if they've got family, is it a place they actually want to live? So that's perhaps the other part. So I think all of that is in scope with council. So it leads on from the earlier question. We definitely don't want to be the Tech and the Tron or the Cultivate Trust. We're focusing on the one thing that we can do really well in support of others in this tent, and that is telling and showcasing that story through those who have chosen to be here and choose to stay here and actually are really proud of this place, this hood. And therefore, that is our role, and we're not wanting to tell a story of, talk about traffic or talk about why this is better or worse than another city. That's not the point. I think people will see that through the stories.
Okay, all right, thank you. Is this the time to ask other questions in the report, or around the economic insights one as well? Yes. Okay, thank you. I've got.
No, just, sorry,
No.
if I can just interject here. Just stick to Tech and the Tron at this stage,
Okay.
if I
All
can.
right,
Thanks.
I'll have one question later then. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for your understanding, Sarah. Councillor Bitter.
Okay, just to check first, are we covering the economic update at the moment or just Tech and the Tron? Okay.
That's another one off the board. Councillor Huaki.
Thank you for your kōrero this morning. I'm just wondering, what is mana whenua or Pacific communities, specifically rangatahi, and those places on your radar? Because totally agree, they come with a whole different lens, real innovative, and really onto it when it comes to anything technical. What sort of narrative have you guys created in terms of that space?
At this stage, we're wanting to tell it through the stories and making sure we uncover and have mana whenua telling these stories of Tech and Tron. So, for example, there are some in the stories about to be released that haven't been shown yet, which would, one is from two are from a Pacifica background, of the 20 new stories that we have. But I think going forward, our thoughts are also how do we ensure more come in the top of the funnel diversity, not just cultural but also gender, because that's a massive challenge in tech, and how do you also inspire youth very early to be able to be inspired and want to see and want to be, what this, what they can identify with or relate to with the stories we're telling. The internships and how we help those who otherwise wouldn't have access to tech is something that we have on our goals for the future. At this stage, because we're quite a small team, we're thinking we need to do one thing really well that hasn't been done at all, which is tell the story, but to make sure it's told through a diverse diversity and authentic stories. Yeah.
Sorry, could I just add one quick point to that? So to bring to light what Aaron just mentioned, and again, I think at one point, Chair Ewan affectionately, I hope, referred to us as a duck, where it's quite calm on the top and quite busy below the water. As we've been here this morning, the people who are part of the trust have been finalizing some of the first phase of the website updates. So completely shameless plug. If you go to techandthetron.com and then click on sectors up top, the first one down is we've titled Next Gen Software and Web Engineering. That's the first, what I'd call sub-page that's somewhat fully formed. And if you look at the stories that Luciana and others have worked hard to tell there, it really starts to give you an indication of where we're going and who is speaking on behalf of the region and telling their quite interesting stories. So much more to come in that space.
Thanks, Mike. That's the exact same point that I was going to make, was encourage members to, and anyone to go and take a look at the website, because I spent some time looking at it myself over the week and I was very impressed. It's pretty cool. I just have a quick question though. In terms of other cities that, you know, we're not doing anything overly different to what cities around the world have done, Dublin, the likes. What do those cities look like after they've encouraged all of this stuff to go on? You know, what's the sustainability part of it look like? You know, does my question make sense? Like, how do we keep the wheel spinning? And actually, to Mike's point about the duck, I know exactly what that feels like.
I'll have an attempt at answering,
Yeah.
but anyone else who has a thought, please add to it. So first of all, around the story, this is the Waikato story and tone of voice, even if it's a problem or a story that other cities may have attempted. And Tech in the Tron as a project and website, and also the social media that will come, we're really trying to get cut through and to do it quite differently, just softly. We didn't want it to look like a government website or an industry commercial website. We just wanted to be quite authentic, and I hope we're achieving that tone.
Oh, definitely.
So moving to your question, what does this look like? If you think about our purpose, why we are doing this, apart from talent into business, is every trustee that's been involved in volunteer is they care about the intergenerational, what does the city and community look like going forward. And that is, how do you keep those values alive, which Waikato is known for. And one core part is the connectivity, the relationships and the welcomeness, the pragmatism, compared to, you know, that's kind of that's the positive parts of our brand and values. And I think they will stay true as we grow. So if this drives economic prosperity, and also as another thing, we already have quite a diverse economy compared to other regions. We're not only reliant on tech. But if our primary industry can also remain strong, and if tech can grow, we are in a very, very attractive position as a region and as a place to live. And I think it's out to council and others who govern this to make sure it continues to be livable and vibrant and doesn't suffer from some of the mistakes and challenges that perhaps uncontrolled growth can bring, because that will then undo some of the reasons why we love to be here.
It's excellent. Thank you, Aaron.
Mike, did you want to add something to it? I mean, it was a fantastic answer from Aaron.
Yeah.
I couldn't even try.
No, I think you nailed it. Yeah, well done. Cheers. Does anyone else have any? Mayor Paula, yes?
Morning. Thank you for the work you do. It's been quite an incredible journey. I've only been on the periphery of it, but I've seen it. And my question is around talent, and I've had this conversation with other people in the tech industry about the young talent that we have, being a very young population, 33 years something, the median age, right? How do we get that cohort to stay in Hamilton, live, work and play, and enter into those fields where there is such opportunity? What are you doing to, can you just, so we all are up to date with what the activities are to harness unformed talent and create talent?
We have a lot of plans, but very focused on this initial project. Just want to caveat what I say. So we are focusing on the Tech in the Tron website and the social media campaign, but there's a bigger purpose, to your point. How do we get the talent in the talent funnel flowing? I also want to note that there are many others across the Waikato and region who are already doing great work in this space. So how do we work and bring those people in the tent to align rather than duplicate that effort and to magnify? So perhaps just two key points, such as Smart Waikato is one core player, or the Institute of Awesome out at Raglan, for example, are really working with how might we attract and stimulate talent at an earlier stage, plus many others. So other projects around that stickability of new people. I think we're trying to really understand the challenges that those personas, or the reasons, the needs of those types of personas. So we've done some research into students leaving uni. Where do they choose to go? Why do they choose to go? What do they need? And we've noticed a difference actually. Those who are domestic, born and bred, versus international. The attraction and stickability for an international student, it's an easier conversion because they already see what New Zealand has to offer. A lot of the younger New Zealand born and bred, or Kiwis I should say, want to fly the nest. And we don't see that as a bad thing because that's where they get skill offshore and can bring it back. We want them to come back. So we haven't quite cracked that nut yet, but we're trying to understand that problem. The earlier stage in the high school students, we understand we need to influence their subject choices at those early years in high school, but to also be really inspired around what's possible and to believe in themselves. So it's that role modelling. So we're thinking of how do we work with others. The one small project that another initiative is, another party is working with, is actually SODA is working with how do we, when interns are here across the summer, how do you bring them together and have a community? But it's working with many others to do that. I don't think I have really answered your question though, Paula.
Yeah, no, yes you have, but it is, you've kind of highlighted the difficulty of that whole arena, getting all the parts to play together. You know, there's Kate, the Careers in Transition Education, and they hold massive events.
I think another core part of the challenge is focus and resource because it's such a complex problem. And as a team, we believe one key missing piece was the voice of industry and hold the way that Tekentron is in the tone through stories and to really uncover those stories and to surprise those from the outside looking in of what actually already exists here to really showcase that. So that has been the absolute focus and doing that well and consistently. So you will soon see our social media turn on and continue on. The reason we've perhaps held back a little bit on that is we wanted to be ensure that once we started to push again on Tekentron that it didn't fall away. So looking at how do we resource those main things that we must do well before we then start to tackle larger projects, because we don't want to stop and start. But it's how do we work with others to do that really well and not duplicate.
Yeah, I think it would be good to, I've attended that, oh God, I wore the T-shirt this morning and now I can't even remember. They do that big event around science and children. What is that called? I've got the T-shirt. But that kind of model of things where children see how they can be involved, I think. Anyway, that's
the biggest opportunity. There's nothing better to see the lights of a young person who hasn't been told already what they can or can't do, see what is possible. One of the core ways they'll do that is by seeing stories and thinking, wow, that's cool, wish I could do that, and they can relate to it. So, and that goes across all genders and ethnicities is really important, and that is often what is missing when you can't see it.
Yeah, and I know in the science area there's some educators that are particularly passionate about science, and the kids were lit up when they saw the whole robots and things. It was like a huddle around these robots that they could manipulate. So it's great.
I talk about this around the dinner table. So my poor children have asked for a road trip. They want to see these tech businesses. And I'm thinking, why should only 2 or 5 or 6 children get to do this roadie with me? Well, shouldn't this be, you know, and that's how do you magnify that? And how do you resource that to do that well?
Thank you. Maybe some shared messages to government incoming for us, for investment, right? Thanks.
Thanks, colleagues, for your questions. Thanks, Erin and Arif. Very good contribution. Some real good stuff in there. Blair, would you like to invite?
Yes, thank you. And I just want to before we just invite Greg up, showcasing one of our sectors is key to sort of highlight the work that goes on behind the scenes here. We have a number of sectors that Mike has touched on. The Tech on the Tron Connovate Trust has been a real highlight for us. And I want to acknowledge also Mayor Paula and previous Chair Ryan for their early work in championing our involvement with what was then referred to as a tech sector working group, if I recall, in its early days, and some of the meetings that we had over the Instillery, etc. And so, Mayor Paula, your enthusiasm and encouragement, and that of Councillor Ryan, as he was was really key to get this going. So what you've heard today is really the culmination of that early discussion some time ago. So again, thank you, Erin, thank you, David, for the work that you're doing to champion this. It's a critical part of our economy. I'll just invite Greg to come forward to quickly touch on the economic update, and then through the chair, happy to circle back and capture any questions on the insights or any other matters in the report that I know Councillor Sarah and Councillor Andrew want to touch on.
Good morning, elected members. Excuse me. I think in the interest of time, maybe just a couple of quick observations from the Tiki's economic report and just sort of the lie of the land. I think much has been said about the housing. I think something that's come out was, I guess, bubbling up as population growth, and with a shortage of housing or capacity constraints that we have, the pressure on the rental market, I think, is something that we should keep a close eye on, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it at our end. And that's maybe just the only comment I'd make in the interest of time, but just open it up to you. There's quite a bit of material in there regarding the economic situation.
Thanks, Greg. Right. Oh, sorry. Councillor Sarah, online.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not sure if this question is to you, Greg, or but it's just around. We include quite a few stats in there around residential housing and rentals and things, but there's not much in there around industrial land. And I note one of the key remarks from in one of the reports was, from the manufacturing sector and things around the supply of industrial land. Do you have any updates you're able to give now, or is it possible to kind of make that more of a regular thing in these economic insight reports?
Thanks, Councillor Sarah. We could bring a lot of information to the table on there. I think Mark Davey and the city planning team and the HBA work really talks about that, because there is a lot in there, and we tend to focus on, what is the activity and outlook for, the land use development. But I'm happy to take that feedback away and bring some information there. But I do think it's probably more of your district plan committee.
Okay, maybe it's then that we have some, in either of the committees. I think it would be useful if we're doing some kind of reporting on general numbers, where the price of industrial land has been going, because we're kind of, I guess, looking at consent numbers there for housing, so some kind of metrics we can follow around industrial, just to keep a finger on the pulse would be helpful. But I'm happy for that to come to either committee.
Okay, well, perhaps just a summary, some summary facts about that in the economic update, and then, all the detail for the industrial land situation, in the district plan committee. Would that be useful?
I think that sounds good. Yeah.
I think for the purposes for this committee, and Councillor Sarah, you'll be aware of some of this. The work that Mark Davey is leading housing business assessment is showing a looming shortage of industrial land, and that is obviously a focus for us. And councillors will be aware through your committee, Councillor Sarah, that we are looking at emerging areas for industrial land for that medium longer term supply, recognising that as a city continues to grow in terms of population, there's also a consideration around where are the jobs, what are those jobs, what sectors, which speaks to the work that Mike is doing, but also where is the land that will be required as part of that future increase in jobs and business and industry. So many jobs obviously will be in existing parts of the city and in a range of locations, but also we have a need to also provide for future industrial land growth as the city and the sub-region continues to grow.
And while it largely sits under strategic growth, I guess, do you think having that within the purview of this committee, so there's that economic lens would be useful? Because I would assume that's probably one of the most core things that we could do as a council in terms of economic development.
And Councillor Sarah, we have a live dashboard which shows all of the currently serviced industrial land in the city, which I think would be useful to circulate, because that's a pretty good resource or part of the answers to some of your questions.
But I think Councillor Sarah, we'll make sure that the future reports that come to this committee also pick up a good summary of the industrial business land and some of those metrics that Greg has touched on.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Councillor Bidder.
Thank you, Chair Mark. I'll start off with a similar question to Councillor Sarah. So on page 91, we have a very nice graphic. Down in the bottom corner of the graphic, it does mention non-residential consents, and it notes that industrial consents by floor area are down by minus 30%. So nice to have the metrics. It would be nice to also have some sort of qualitative comment on why. I imagine it could possibly be because of the big Kmart building might have been consented last year. But yeah, so sort of, if we could have just gut feel of that looks like a problem, it might not be a problem. Next question.
Councillor
Yep.
Bidder, sorry to interrupt. You're dead right. So Ruakura all-time highs, in the last year to 2 years. So all-time, all the way back. In fact, significantly higher than any other year in history. So you're probably right not to be concerned about that number in particular. So dropping 30% off an all-time high, I'll take it away and just check, but I'm pretty sure that's actually not a concern. But I think you're right. The commentary, that is a big number. So what's behind that? So I'll take that feedback away as well, just to have a bit of explanation about like big numbers that are changing.
Very good. The commentary on the residential part is good. Just want to clarify, Kaingaroa doing their consenting, is the number of consents they've issued included in our Hamilton consenting figures, or is it they two separate numbers? Just so that, is the total in that graphic the total for Hamilton, or just the total for Hamilton City Council?
It is, good question. It is the total for Hamilton. Kāinga Order, for some reason, are quite delayed in providing their data. So, but my view is we're talking about Hamilton. It should be consents in Hamilton. So, yeah, it includes Kāinga Order.
Yeah. And last question on the next page, page 92. On the net migration, the axis is month by month. I'm just thinking that should be year by year, and just whether that might need correcting and updating.
Can easily be.
Yeah. Right, and just related to that, so last month there were news items about immigration rolling 12 months hitting, or was just under 100,000. So now that we're up to about 110,000, so is this showing that migration is accelerating and we can expect even more in the next few months as the rolling 12-month average moves?
I think at this point in time it's very much a policy setting, so we'll wait and see what comes out of the coalition talks in hopefully they'll set out their objectives. But I think general understanding is that the new government is pro-migration, probably pro, what do you call it, economic migration, so qualified migrants focus. So I guess the broad expectation will be that it will continue. There seems to be a strong demand, you know, in terms of international migration to New Zealand. So we're keeping a close eye, but I would expect strong migration going forward.
Right, thank you.
That's a good line of questioning there, Councillor Bitter. Thank you for your observations too. Councillor Casey Cox.
Yeah, just a question in regards to, I guess the areas in Hamilton. It's not reflected in here, but the areas of Hamilton that are development ready, and I guess just what level of housing that might enable if it was to come to market, I guess, and yeah, just a comment on that.
Yeah, sure. So we've got a good handle on greenfield developable land. The brownfield's difficult because it's really around feasibility, and there's sort of you know, a vast amount of potential developable land in the brownfield, but now with capacity constraints and just that it's more you know, speckled around the city. So in the greenfield, we're estimating about 3,200 dwellings worth of developable land in the greenfield, and in the infill, it's hard to say with the new constraints as well. So I think that's a tougher question. Probably have to go away and do a bit more thinking about that to have a better estimate. The HBA, your housing and business assessment, does have numbers in it around infill developable land, but it tends to be district plan enabled type numbers. So they're always, you know, in the central city, it might have, you know, tens of thousands, but in fact, you know, how much developable capacity is there, that's a bit harder to say.
And I understand that some of the land in the Greenfields area is ready to go, but is sort of just sitting there. Are there any ways in which we could incentivise that to get going, I guess, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think ask politely might be one way, but if that doesn't work, I mean, I think, you know, incentivising them from a financial perspective, so meaning tax the land, increase the tax on land potentially to encourage development. We are looking at that, so Stephen Halliwell's I've actually been looking at that as well. There's some unanswered questions about the legal ins and outs of it and how would you do it, but I think if the council was interested in investigating that, we could probably go further with it. I think it's a possibility. So we're talking about, like, I'm referring in Rototuna to circa 2,000 lots worth of housing that's sitting on entirely undeveloped land. The land use is farming, but the zoning is residential. So,
yeah.
I just wonder whether we're sort of straying off the focus of the committee a bit, but that particular topic is an LTP topic, and the report for that meeting will showcase that there's more work to be done, and for a future planning process. But,
Thank you. Just a final question. I'm noting the squeeze on our rental accommodation in particular, and I guess it might be a question for another place also, Blair, but just wondering if there's any information on consents for build-to-rent projects in the city, if there's any you know, way in which we're looking to address that critical shortage of rentals.
I'd have to take that away. Excuse me, I have to take that away. I'm not sure. I don't know about build to rent, but I'm happy to take that away. Okay. But there is a lot of pressure on rentals. Things like even the great things that you know, Healthy Homes deliver for rentals. There's a compliance issue. You've got interest rates which typically get passed on to tenants, and just the shortage it's unfortunate that there is a problem brewing there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anna. Councillor Sarah's gone from question time.
Chair Mark, I might just ask it.
Yep. If it's to
That's
do with
okay.
industrial land again, then knock
No,
yourself
it's
out, because
not.
I love it when you talk about that.
It was along, just Councillor Andrew was talking about migration and I don't know who got an email from Dave Mack today, but around an article where Ernst & Young is saying, look, we're most likely undercooking our projections with migration, and notes that Stats New Zealand has consistently been quite conservative around that. And I guess I'm just wondering, like, how can we have some further conversation around what, like, whether we're potentially underestimating it, or what it might look like if we see much higher settings, and what it will mean for, I guess, things like the rental shortage, the ability for people to even move here to work, etc.
Good question.
Takeaway piece for you again, Greg.
Yeah, although...
You happy to address it now?
Yeah, quickly, yeah. I can't. First to say, I can't believe Dave McPherson is still hunting me down on population questions, but that's good. Councillor Sarah, I mean, the international migration numbers are reliable because they're, they're border data. My team has been in a lab, literally underground in a lab at the university with access to the government's detailed admin data, which is, all the health records, all the address changes through any of the major agencies. So we've got some awesome data about the migration movement of people within New Zealand, and that was really the missing piece. That we knew that they fly into Auckland, and then what was the next question. So we're doing a bunch of work. So hopefully we should be able to bring some real insights back soon about that, and that will talk to whether or not they're understated, those numbers for Hamilton. But again, I think what's coming into New Zealand is, I'd take that as good, but let us come back to you probably after Christmas with some really cool information about that.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to that information. That sounds cool, but that sounds good. But I was also just thinking more in terms of the projections, trying to crystal ball gaze. And I mean, ultimately, a lot of this depends on immigration settings, and there seems to be an assumption that we're kind of going to go back to previous settings, and that this was just one big blip.
Yeah, the truth is we take Stats New Zealand information on population growth, population migration that they regularly put out. We just accept that information, so we don't have a demographics team. So broadly speaking, we accept their information, and we can learn more about where those flows are to and from, and probably challenge some of them with the new data. But yeah, we generally just accept stats numbers in that way.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Greg.
I think Councillor Sarah, and I note the article that previous Councillor McPherson circulated widely this morning, or certainly to a few. Ernst & Young were certainly seeing that the Stats New Zealand's projections for New Zealand population could be exceeded considerably earlier. It will break through 6 million people by 2036 and 7 million by mid to late 2050s. So that's quite a trajectory of growth. And a lot of those will descend in the Upper North Island in and around Auckland. So the commentary there, obviously there's a lot for the committee that you chair, Councillor Sarah, to think about, but equally for this committee, more people, more employment, more people looking for work, more people needing work, potentially also more employers through that immigration, or more potential employers as part of the immigration. So there's a handshake there between our two committees, and obviously, as Greg has touched on, immigration has been supporting the economy for New Zealand, whether that's the right decision or not for New Zealand Inc. is outside of our remit, but it is how do we respond to that, and what is the economic opportunities and impacts for us. And we've heard this morning around new workforce, new employees, the type of skills they bring, but equally where will those jobs be, what type of sectors, what type of industries will they be. Are we seeing a changing makeup of the sectors that make up our economy, and how are we thinking about that? So there's a lot of information there to distill, and I guess this is where the analytics from Greg's team helps us.
Excellent. Thanks, Blair. No further questions, so Mayor Paula, you sort of started to say something earlier. Yeah.
It's all right, moved on, thank you.
Okay. All right, well, if we can, I'm happy to move the report and just require a seconder. Anna, Councillor Casey Cox, thank you. Any debate? Any further comments? Oh, look at you go.
Really want to acknowledge the data in the report, like you've done, Councillor Mark. It's so it's great to have, because it helps build out the picture of what we're making decisions about. But I do want to acknowledge an ongoing housing crisis. And when we have key workers in our city that can't find rental accommodation, and emergency housing that keeps on coming, we've really got to keep addressing this critical issue. I do note that there's a suggestion in the report that the housing market, there's a return of confidence, which actually makes me feel really nervous, because I think that just means increased house prices and increased unaffordability. So we certainly need to make sure, in my opinion, that this conversation is very much part of our considerations in terms of what we spend our money on and how we incentivise affordability in our city. You know, and part of that, like, we've got many levers in council that we can use. We've got DC remissions for affordable housing. For example, we've got the ability to enable infrastructure where we've got developers that are keen to enable affordable housing. We've just got so many different levers, including, you know, potentially contributing to an affordable housing fund. So there's lots of conversation to be had as we move into the LTP. But I just want to, you can't get a report, a more detailed report that doesn't, it emphasises the crisis of housing so incredibly well, unfortunately, and it just means we have to take this issue really seriously and do more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anna. Mayor Southgate.
Thank you. That's all right. You can call me Mayor Paula, it's all good. Just want to, because this is the last report for the year, so thank you for your update. It's always really interesting to understand what underpins the economic well-being of the city, because everything we do, and I know you made a comment that the questions that Anna was asking was around other matters, but of course strategic growth and economic development go hand in hand. Absolutely they do, and the outcomes of that are about how well people thrive in the live, work and play proposition that we're very keen on, Blair. So I think it is pretty relevant. I want to shout out and say a big thanks to Cultivate IT for everything, and including the staff that have sat around the table, and I know you have also sat around Tech in the Tron. I've been to a few meetings myself. Ryan did a lot of incredibly hard work in the beginning of that as well, so thanks to the staff and to Ryan and yourself, and also to the tech innovators in our city. We're really lucky to have some passionate advocates. I'd like to see government understand how they pipeline some of our youth into these kind of careers which have a future for them. And so I think that's really important conversation. And the other thing I'd like the government to understand is land banking has got to stop. It has to stop, because it's holding us back from the faster gains for our community. Yes, we can open up more land, and yes, within the bounds of our very tight budget right now, we can put some water and roads in and open up some more. But I really feel strongly that those sections that Greg was talking about need to be utilised and we need to have a mechanism. So I've asked Natasha to help me draft with staff a letter to go to government to deal with the legal barrier that exists for that, so that we can make a clear signal and start talking about it out loud, which is why I'm using it in my debate. Sorry about the overflow on my 6 seconds. But I think it was really important to articulate that out loud, that we need those developers who have development-ready land, who've used the opportunity to put infrastructure towards that land. We need them to come to the party and help us develop the city in a way that's going to help us all thrive. So that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you, Mayor Paula. Councillor Bidder.
Thank you, Chair Mark. I agree with Mayor Southgate's comments and Councillor Anna's concerns about the housing crisis. In a growing market, the next unit of production sets the market price. So construction costs for new houses have a massive impact, and included in the construction costs of developing is council costs, regulations, inspections, water connections and things like that, which on my own developments have shot up by 30% in a year, which hurts. The numbers aren't great. We have 1,058 new lots granted in the last year, but homes completed are 1,395. So if you go forward, we don't have enough lots for the houses that we are building at a time when there's a shortfall of building houses. So there's looking like a 30% further fall there. When we look at 73% of construction being in brownfield, the uncertainty caused by water connections means that the developers will be shying away from buying that, which leaves the 3,200 greenfield lots, which is just a year and a half's supply, and then we're really hitting the wall. So it is a big problem.
Thank you, Councillor Bidder. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. My thoughts are along the lines of Councillor Andrew and Councillor Anna, that we do have a very big problem brewing. In my view, I mean, we've just had the largest increase in population out of all of the cities, 3.4% increase in population in this last year. I think that we're likely to continue to see higher levels of overseas migration, and to see a continued strong increase in population here in the city. And I really worry that at the same time we're seeing reduced number of consents for housing, and we're seeing a really tight rental market. And on top of that, our long-term plan is taking a very constrained approach to investing in future infrastructure for housing and for business. So there's so many things in the mix here, which I think are going to lead to some real problems when it comes to people being able to access housing. And we need this, a lot of this comes back to us actually as a country needing to invest ahead of this population growth, which is otherwise going to put huge pressure and strain on all of our infrastructure, not just pipes and roads. And I think that that report that came out, well, sorry, the article that we were discussing earlier spoke on that this really is sneaking up on us, and we need to act more quickly before we find ourselves in a really big mess. So, but thank you to staff for all of that information coming to us, which is really important, as others have said. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Sarah. No other debate. I'll just make a quick comment. I think one of the things I always look at when you're championing your results and whatnot is, and I'll start by saying as a city it's viable that we, to measure our performance using key metrics, and they've certainly been delivered to us in some fantastic reporting that's come through from staff, by comparison to other cities. But I think that what I would add is that while these metrics do compare us to other cities, and they're always cut and sliced in a way that shape quite a delightful narrative, sometimes not such a good narrative, and there's some negativity there which we can address, I still think it's vital that we focus on the best possible outcomes that are resulting from the activities that we choose to prioritise. That's us as a city. Simply put, it's up to us to deliver, because it's our results and measurables that make Hamilton the success that it is. So I like comparisons to other cities, which I noted in the reports was really good, but I just firmly believe that we need to champion our results, as this is why Hamilton is such a great place to live. So if we keep doing that, we will attract the right type of people to come to the city, and then we can address all of those issues that come with it, which are good issues to have because they're growing pains. And a city in growth is a good thing in my opinion. So with that, did I get a mover and a seconder? I did, didn't I? Yeah. Oh, myself and Anna, that's right. So show of hands for all those in favour.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay. Right, what I'm going to suggest now is that we take can we take a 10-minute break? Yep, just a bit of a comfort stop, grab a cup of coffee, and then we'll come back and get into item 9, I think, isn't it? Yep. Great. Right, back at 10 past. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone. Hopefully you got a cup of coffee and a comfort stop. We're going to move on to item number 9 now, and this is addressing external agencies and CCO reporting. Blair's asked that we take it in 2 parts. Yep. So we have, Blair, if you want to introduce Lehigh and
Yeah, look, the first part covers the HCBA and specifically the proposed changes to the bid, which you've already approved in principle, and this is obviously matter for the LTP, so Lehigh and Vanessa will touch on that. And then we will then turn it across to the airport and in particular the dividend policy, which Sean will cover. So that's captured in the second part of item 9, which is seen as the late report down the very bottom. So that, but they are all the same report. So I'll hand over to Lehigh and Vanessa.
Kia ora Chair, kia ora Blair. Tēnā koe, kei te kaikaunihira. Yeah, I don't expect there to be too much discussion today on this. It is just an update. So I did want to highlight though that today's report was sort of written in the shifting sands of the LTP timeframe. So it incorrectly states that we'll report to the 12th of December LTP meeting. All decisions will be made at the 28th and 29th of November LTP meeting. That's for the bid revenue increase, bid extension into Hamilton East, subject to the poll, and then also on the 95% bid commercial rate as well. Other than that, yeah, happy to take the report as read and take any questions.
That's all she wrote. No questions. So,
could I just, before you just finish up, any sort of verbal feedback, any sort of commentary that elected members may want to know just from the members as the poll is underway?
Yes, happy to do a quick update. So the poll went out at the beginning of last week, so it should be noted because it's a postal poll. There is a bit of a time lag for people to receive it and then respond. So the responses are just coming in now. I've got an information evening that I'm holding tonight at the Cook to allow anybody to drop in, and if they have any questions, any of the businesses in Hamilton East, so I've promoted that out to them. We also have a couple of adverts going in this week and next week into the Hamilton Press, just notifying of this poll that is underway. So that's pretty much the update in a nutshell. And I don't have, in terms of who has responded, whether they've responded in the positive or negative yet. That will be collated over the next week or so. Thank you.
Paula.
For the benefit of councillors who may not have been around quite so long, can you talk about the importance of the bid to the work that you do, because you get funded? I mean, that's one way of making you viable, and what other pressures you're feeling financially in terms of running your organisation?
Thank you, Mayor Paula. Yes, so at the moment we're pretty much on a fixed budget that we work to support the business community, whether that's through networking events, advocacy through the council, promotion. We do a lot around the roughly 1,200 businesses we have in the network. So we're all about encouraging people to come into town and visit those businesses. So there is a few pressures around at the moment, not just financially, but probably coming up in the LTP discussions that you have as well. So we know that there is particular sectors out there that are really battling quite hard at the moment, namely our close contact ones, retail, hospitality, health and beauty, and so we're doing as much as we can to support, particularly in the promotion and lead up to Christmas, which is traditionally their best time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Kesh. Oh, sorry, me, Paula, had you finished?
I have, sorry. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Kesh.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question around the bid rate, and it might be premature, but just wanting to flag it for maybe conversation later. Just in regards to LTP and paid parking within the CBD and how that affects the bid rate. So I'm assuming that Vanessa's all over it, but just flagging it for later if this is not the time. Thank you.
It is for later. We've aligned that to LTP thinking, haven't we, Lehigh? Yep.
I think Vanessa, you can probably confirm that you are well aware of all the various moving parts of the, not only the bid rate and the differential, but also the separate but interlinked conversation on parking, and there's also a parking rate as part of that. Lots of balls in the end, that one.
Yeah. Be careful not to kick any of them with your bung toe. Yeah. Okay, no further questions? No? Thanks for coming in today. Thanks for your time, Lehigh, as always. Yep, great. Right, the second part now is going to be about the WRAL and that late item that came in, late report, I think you would call it, wouldn't you? Late section, yep. So page 125 of Diligent talks about the policy dividend, and I'd welcome Deputy CEO Sean to the microphone.
Thank you, Chair. Look, just a couple of introductory comments to this paper. The items that are covered here under the recommendations, and also the item that's going to come up in PX as well, it's really much an extension of previous resolved action that we were required to complete from earlier meetings of the Economic Development Committee. This particular paper is specifically about the RAL dividend policy, which was formally presented at the company AGM to shareholders, and we did talk about that a little bit earlier on. And at the same time, as I said before, they did announce a dividend payment. The key thing is that the dividend policy that the RAL board has put together has been accepted by all the shareholders at the shareholder meeting. But if you read the policy, it's actually probably pretty standard. It's nothing wildly exciting or out of the ordinary. It reflects the responsibility of directors of a company to act in the best interests of the company, whilst at the same time wanting to ensure that they deliver the best possible benefit to shareholders. So it's a balancing act that a board has to take with regards its capability to pay dividends and at what level, depending on its cash position, its forecast trading moving ahead, and the level of investment that the business has to put back into itself as well in order to continue to grow and be active. I would remind you, and I do appreciate concerns that the dividend policy, the dividend payouts have been light, but I would remind you that this council, along with other shareholders, historically have had to bail this business out with cash. We've had a glorious period now for the last 10 years since with the new board that's in place, or we're following some substantial change that we did collectively as shareholders, to not be in that position anymore, and it's looking much more secure than what we have had in the past. Equally, I'd say, add to this that there are a number of airports or smaller regional airports around the country that are actually funded by their council owners. And we have managed to get this business out of that site. I can assure you that the board itself is very conscious of the need to deliver to shareholder needs, and dividends is one element of that, and we will talk a bit about other needs, shareholder requirements or aspirations in the PX session. The other item that's noted under the recommendations is we had resolved earlier on to see if we could organise a field trip, for want of a better phrase, for elected members to actually go out to the airport and have a full briefing on the airport operations and see it and be able to touch and feel it. And we did try to do that specifically for HCC a short while ago, but we struggled to get a suitable number of people available on the dates that were available. However, we're now looking towards having a much bigger field trip in place in early March, hopefully next year, which would include elected members from all other council shareholders in the region. So it'd be quite a big gaggle of elected members who will be coming together for a study tour, effectively, if you like. And that will give those councillors who haven't had a closer opportunity to understand the airport business beyond their biannual reports into this committee, a chance to see a bit more what's going on. And I'll be honest, it will dispel a few myths for you in terms of what is going on at the airport, because it's quite a big business these days. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Sean, any questions from the team? No? What's that? Yeah, we must be saving up till PX. Look, I like the sound of that visit in March next year. I think that's got some real legs to it. Okay, with that in mind, I'm happy to move item 9? Yep. And I'll just need a seconder if anyone wants to. Councillor Bitter, thanks. And I would, any debate? Nope. Okay. By show of hands, can we say all in favour? 2, 3. Councillor Louise? Put your hand up. Yep. Okay, cool. And
The motion is carried unanimously.
great, thanks. Thanks, Louise. So with that, we'll now move to item 10. And Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the standing report on the quarterly progress of the MEF. Happy to take that part as read and answer any questions. And the only other matter in this particular report is brief updates on the Opoia Pa car park. Two matters there. One is the renaming of the site. That work is progressing with full engagement with mana whenua. And the other item is, of course, the future development of the land. And that also is a matter of engagement which is currently underway, again with mana whenua. So happy to take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Nicholas. Does anyone have any questions? No, not at this stage. I did have one, but I'm going to take it offline. I'll catch up with you around that a little later. It's nothing burning, pressing. Go ahead. Oh, yep. Okay. Mayor Paula, did you have a question? Oh, comment. Okay. Well, if we, sorry, Paula to move. Anyone keen to second? Councillor Bitter. Yep.
Thank you to the Municipal Endowment Fund and this committee for really bringing a much more aggressive and focused agenda on economic growth and the opportunities we can take. There's a lot of work going into the Municipal Endowment Fund working group, and I see that. At the end of that, however, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. I think there's some pretty exciting projects that are going to pop out now. It's not always very easy. Since we don't build anything much, we enable. It's not always easy to get there as fast as we like. Nicholas and Chair, you know my mantra of show me the hotel, so I'm still on to that. The good thing is when I look down the tunnel, I think I can see a hotel shining in the distance, and seems to be, Sean, getting a little bit closer, and I'm excited about that because I think that's pretty necessary. So thank you for the work you're doing. I'm all about being as aggressive as possible to bring about the benefits that we can bring. We've got to do it now because it's never going to be easier in the future to do it. Now is the time, so thank you for that.
Thanks, Mayor Paula. I'll just add, Nicholas, thanks for the report. You and the team do a great job in highlighting page 116.11, where you've explained the MEF in a bit of detail. I thought that was really good. It was just quite timely for the in terms of the reading, so thank you for that. It's good, great work. Right, so we've got the mover and seconder, so no further debate. All those in favour, raise your hand. Any against? No.
The motion was carried unanimously.
Great, thank you. Right, item 11, resolution to exclude the public. I'm happy to move. Seconded by Mayor Paula. All those in favour? Against?
Carried unanimously.
Okay.